What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope all doing well. So we got a shorter show today, but let's jump right in. We had a couple of smaller moves in the NBA. Well, one small move, one was a big contract. We had a trade between the San Antonio Spurs and the Washington Wizards. Spurs acquire Kelly Olynyk from the Washington Wizards. In return, I send Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham, and a second round pick next year to Wizards. I think this is a fair trade. I think both teams get something out of it. If you're the Spurs, Wesley and Branham this last year or two have not played a lot for you. Yes, they are young and you have a young core, so technically he does fit your timeline more than those two guys fit your timeline better than Kelly Olynyk does. That being said, Spurs are shifting into contender mode. You make the trade for De'Aaron Fox last year. You've obviously had a lot of high picks in recent years. Obviously, landing Victor Wembanyama, who I think could be just an astonishing player for a long time. I think that's pretty clear. You got him number one overall 2 years ago. You take Stephon Castle last year, fourth overall. Take Dylan Harper the second pick this year. All of a sudden, you're putting together a really good team. I think will be very competitive in a really tough West. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to be a top team, but at the very least, a playing team if they stay healthy. Wembanyama this past year had a lot of injuries. Going to eventually get shut down with that shoulder injury towards the end of the season. So you probably want someone behind him in case he were to get hurt again. He is very, very thin. Doesn't mean he's not going to be. He's not amazing. I don't think it really matters when the guy's that talented, but still, injuries may be concerned long term with him. And they got legit backup big in Kelly Olynyk, so it's a very solid backup center. This past year had some injuries himself, only played in 44 games. But I've talked about this before. Olynyk is a solid stretch five to have on your team coming off the bench. This past year, averaged 8 points a game and four boards, shot 50% from the field, 41, almost 42% from three, almost 77% from the line. He's one of the more well-rounded offensive bigs in the game, at least in terms of bench bigs. He's playing a lot of basketball, coming 34, now he lands in San Antonio. For Washington, this makes sense. Kelly Olynyk is not going to be able to help you. You're god-awful. I've said read Deck Central multiple times over there of all the over-the-hill players you have over there, from C.J. McCollum. You had Olynyk, you over half him, obviously. Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart. I heard Smart might be getting let go, so you know, a trade or in a buyout. Just doesn't make a lot of sense to what they're doing. Yes, Wesley and Branham have not contributed a lot. Both are all going to be 21, 22 years old. One been in the league for about 2 years. Young guys that you can evaluate. You know, it's the same reason why I thought it was really good to pick up Cam Whitmore from Houston. You know, so those two actually make a lot of sense. Now you pick up Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham, and you get a second round next year, which probably won't be that's going to be probably a mid to late second round pick. It's very possible to like a mid second round pick, which is not a ton of value, but at least it's a draft pick that you get for along with two young players. But again, might not become anything, but it's something for a guy who at best was going to ride your bench for this season and not help you in what's going to probably another ugly 20-win season for the Washington Wizards. So, and Brenham actually showed a little bit of promise this past year. He's shown the ability to shoot the three a little bit. Wesley hasn't shown you much, but both are still 21, 22 years old, going into what their third seasons in the league. So, two guys you can evaluate in the second rounder for Kelly Olynyk. That's about what you're going to get for Kelly Olynyk, I would say. And the Oklahoma City Thunder extend Chet Holmgren 5 years, $250 million. Look, this is a ginormous deal, $50 million a year for a guy who's only played one healthy season in his career and has not. And it's a 16 points per game score. Yes, that's a lot, but we saw this kid at Gonzaga. We've seen what he can do when he's healthy. This kid is utterly talented. Only going to be 23 years old next year. Only going to be his fourth season in the NBA. Third year actually playing. Remember his rookie year, he gets hurt in the like that pro-am league playing against LeBron James, and he ends up missing the whole season. Yes, didn't take the jump that we all thought. 2 years ago, when he finished second in Rookie of the Year voting, he averaged 16 points, almost 8 boards, shot 37% from three from the field. This past year, a ton of injuries. Again, only played 32 games, 15 points a game, but did average 8 rebounds, and did shoot 37%, almost 38% from three, 49 from the field still. And what he did defensively, I think, was very underrated. He was, I think, if he was eligible, would have probably been on the second team, all defense team. I think at his floor, which is I think what we saw last year, is a guy who he's obviously although he's very thin, obviously for a guy his size, which could be a concern long term. But he's a guy who's a good shooter, decent scorer, and a really good defender at the 5 position. Can also play the 4. And I think his ceiling, I don't even think we've even gotten close to his ceiling. So, 50 million a year is a lot of money for a guy who's only played one healthy season and is a 16 points per game scorer for his career. However, he was a decent part, very large part of their championship team this season. Got to keep them together. Again, that second apron is coming for them. You just gave Shy a ridiculous contract. He got over 70 million. What do you get? 70 something million dollars a year? Like that's just ridiculous. But and then you get 50 per to Chet. I can imagine Jalen Williams' contract is coming soon too. But I'm not sure. But to Missouri is obviously really young. You have a lot of draft picks. Nicole Topic come back on the bench next year. Team that might be able to avoid some of the terrors that the second apron brings to teams. But Chet Holmgren will be a Thunder for a very long time. He sends a 5-year extension worth $250 million. Close out today. We're going to talk about my offseason grades for the AFC North to the AFC East grades yesterday. I'm going to do the AFC North offseason grades. I'm going to go start with the Baltimore Ravens. They got the highest marks of any team in the division. I gave them a B. Overall, this division wasn't that busy in the offseason. No, the Ravens receivers usually don't make super splashy moves. The Bengals and Browns, I don't even really know what they're doing half the time. But Ravens overall had a decent offseason. I don't mind the Diop pickup. It's only for what, $4 or $5 million. I don't know how much the guy has left. Down the stretch, he wasn't too productive for the Chiefs, but as a third receiver, there are worse guys out there. Nothing else can be a good mentor for a guy like Zay Flower, maybe even Rashad Bateman. But so you do add him, which I don't hate. And overall, they were pretty quiet, though. I do like the Jari Alexander move. You pick him up on a 1-year deal after he gets let go by Green Bay. Yes, he's got a lot of injury concerns. He had that weird thing where like he went up on the corners when he wasn't supposed to because he was in his hometown, but he didn't tell anybody a couple of years ago. But overall, when healthy, he's a really good corner still. You put him. They already need another outside corner because Nate Wiggins, who drafted from the first round last year, I think is very good. Had a good rookie year, but he's a more of a slot guy. Him and Humphrey should be a good duo. Again, two guys who were kind of aging a bit and maybe have lost half a step, but are still two very good corners with Kyle Hamilton at safety. That secondary, that's defense as a whole, plus John Harbaugh running the show over there, is looking really, really dangerous. So I like that move by the Baltimore Ravens as well. They have all the key pieces coming back. I really wish they went out and got a legit piece on the outside. So someone who's got a little bit more left in the tank than DeAndre Hopkins. Even taking a chance on Stephon Diggs like New England did, I think would have made a lot of sense if they could have gotten something like that. And you also take Malachi Starks in the first round of the draft. I think he'll be a really good safety. I'm surprised he fell to them. So, although again, if the Ravens had went out and got an even better receiver, I would have given it an absolute A. However, I think you did some nice things. I believe you are still the best team in this division. I don't think it's that close, to be honest. And I think you put yourself in a position to possibly be a Super Bowl contender this season. Next off is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going in Scamming Zora from last season. Steelers get a C minus. I didn't really like what they did. I didn't think it made a lot of sense. For starters, the fact that you saw what Aaron Rodgers did the Jets into that franchise, and he said, "Let's bring in that guy." Another year older, another year of a torn Achilles. The guy's 41 years old. He's going to be 42 by the end of the season. I don't understand. I know his numbers don't look horrible. I think was it 60% of his passes he completed for 3,800 yards. Was it 27 touchdowns? I guess 12 picks. So his numbers don't look horrible. If you watch the games like I did, he had 6 or 7 chances to go down the field and win the game late in the fourth quarter, and 0 times he was able to do it. That game against the Vikings where he throws 3 picks, he cost him that game. And again against Seattle, where your special teams defense was making plays. You're up what? You're up 14 or 17, whatever it was, in the second quarter. You're deep in the red zone, and you overthrow Garrett Wilson, and then you throw a pick 6. You end up losing that game. He really wasn't that great. I don't know what you're going to get out of him. I really think the guy is washed. He was, I guess, serviceable last year, but and maybe second year removed from the torn Achilles, that's when the guys really revert back to form. And I mean, his last year in Green Bay, he wasn't that much better, to be honest. He was already declining. I don't see how he gets much better than he was with the Jets. Maybe he gets the same thing. He does have the offensive line in Pittsburgh might be a tiny bit better. The weapons are probably a little bit better. It's obviously, signaling about Mike Tomlin. He's a better coach than whatever the Jets had last year. Their defense is better than what the Jets put out last year. So it's a little better situation, but I really don't expect what to get. And just the drama that will come with him and the along the tangent of him going on McAfee's show to at best get trounced in the first round of the playoffs. This is going to be the same result anyway. I'm pretty sure. I don't really think this is worth it. And you let Najee Harris walk, and look, Najee Harris is as average as it gets. However, four straight 1,000-yard seasons, four straight 1,000-yard seasons. I do like the Caleb Johnson pick in the second round. Rick Harmon in the first round. I like the player. I think might have been a slight reach and not really what they needed. And I don't mind giving away George Pickens. They're going to pay him $30 million a year next year. I think he's an overrated receiver. It's a head case. Metcalf, I do like that move. He's a very good receiver. I think a little overrated. $30 million in the league is a little much, but he's a very good player. But I don't like the move to pick up Jalen Ramsey. You trade away, although he's getting a little older, still one of the better safeties in football, and Minka Fitzpatrick for an aging corner and Jalen Ramsey, who's still a good corner. I like him and Joey Porter together for this season, but beyond the season, not sure what that looks like. Ramsey's been declining for a couple of years now. And again, you pick up John Smith, who's a good tight end, had a great finish to last season. But again, it's a guy who's probably leaving in free agency after the season. You don't need him because you already had Pat Frymer, who's a top 10-ish tight end in the league, for just as good as Jonnu. It just was unnecessary. If I were Pittsburgh Steelers, I would have, found a little better solution at quarterback and truly went all in to try and make a legit playoff push, or just, roll with Mason Rudolph, who you brought him to be the backup quarterback. Get some picks, get some draft picks for George Pickens, get some draft picks really for everybody. Maybe even TJ Watt, who you haven't extended yet. Apparently, we're still waiting on that. And get some picks for everybody and kind of retool over these next couple of years. And if nothing else, maybe you end up winning 6 games this year, and it gives you a reason to fire Mike Tomlin. I do think needs to happen. So overall, I didn't think they didn't really make a lot of sense. Cincinnati Bengals, they get a D+. I don't really know what they're doing. So look, you lock up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on big contracts, and look, Chase is top 3 receiver at worst in the league. He's absolutely outstanding. He's a dog. Deserves his money. T. Higgins had some injuries this past year. Though that's been a little bit of a concern throughout his career, but it's not horrible to the point where he's not worth the money. He's a great receiver. I think we'll be a level receiver on a lot of different teams. He's obviously the 2, 1B, whatever you want to call him, in Cincinnati. But he's I think one of the 10 best receivers in football when he's healthy. I think he's worth that money. However, you're paying Joe Burrow, Chase, and Higgins a good amount of that salary cap. Her team that did not make the playoffs last year, has a lot of issues defensively, has issues on the offensive line and other areas. Does it make any sense to really pay that much money to 3 players? I don't think it does. Like, Joe Burrow is amazing. I think top 3 or 4 quarterback at worst in football. Again, Chase is top 3 in the league. I think T. Higgins is a top 10 receiver in football. Most of these guys aren't worth their paychecks. They are, but just this is maybe the worst team for football last year. Obviously, Sam Hubbard retires. You just let go of Jermaine Pratt because he was unhappy. Maybe they changed coordinators, which I don't know why. No, he liked Lou Anarumo, but he was not good last year as a coordinator. Now he's in Indianapolis. You still haven't signed Shamar Stewart. You drafted in the first round. A lot of that's on him, but figure it out. I think the second rounder over there, Demetrius Knight, whoever it was, also hasn't been signed. This team's the defense needed a lot of help. You haven't extended Trey Hendrickson, who's getting pissed off. He's back-to-back 17 sack seasons, one of the best 5 pass rushers in all of football. This team needed a lot of help in the secondary. You didn't get it. I think you need some help on the offensive line. You didn't get it. And so I don't know what you're doing, and you're wasting Joe Burrow's career. And I'm sorry. There's a reason that there's a guy who, his rookie year tore the ACL and missed a bunch of games. 2 years ago, broke his wrist and missed a bunch of games. He's playing for injured stuff the whole season, even in training camp, because these line can't protect them. They would win a Super Bowl a few years ago if they had a line. So, not sure what they're doing. It's a complete clown show over there, and they have a lot of talent on their roster offensively, but I don't know what that front office is doing. The Cleveland Browns to me get a C plus. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot they could have done. Didn't really have much cap space. The roster is really bad. I mean, that organization is obviously dreadful. The Deshaun Watson company is obviously, holding them down. You have an aging offensive line that's in decline that you're kind of stuck with, and just, not a whole lot you can do. I mean, you extended Myles Garrett for $40 million a year. I do believe Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in all of football. That guy is absolutely amazing. He's quieted most of those character concerns. But a guy, he's taking up like 9 or 12% of their cap for a team that's coming off a 3 or 4 win year and doesn't really have a starting caliber quarterback on their roster. I mean, like a guy like that, can you trade a guy like that? I don't know, but I would have sniffed around. Maybe someone gives you 2 or 3 first-round picks on a young player or two. I mean, this is the best defensive player in football in his prime. But yes, he had what, a year or two left on his contract. But I assume would have signed that extension somewhere else. The guy you could have for at least 4 or 5 years, best defensive player in football in his prime. I think so. Will give you a couple of firsts and maybe a young player or two. I got in the NFL works a little differently. It's like other sports where guys are teams are willing to give up 2, 3 really good young players. But no, I think you would have gotten a lot back. I mean, you definitely not. I think you would have. Would have been worth for you. That's something you have to consider. The Browns they don't draft well anyway. But like, are you gonna? He might have 18, 19 sacks every year and win another defensive player of the year. He's not gonna play any worse. But like, is he gonna lead to wins? I don't know. I don't mind bringing Joe Flacco. I mean, it's better than whatever the hell they have. I guess Shador in the 5th round, you might as well take a flyer, but is it even worth it with his character concerns? I mean, you trade DTR in the 5th for Kenny Pickett. I mean, DTR is the worst quarterback in all of football. One of the worst I've ever seen. Him in the 5, Kenny Pickett. I guess it's equal value, but Kenny Pickett's also god awful. That quarterback, that's a interesting room. You got old man Flacco, who I'll take him as a backup, but he obviously hasn't been a starter in years in the NFL. Guy probably shouldn't have let go in the first place. Kenny Pickett, I guess he's a better backup than DTR, but not by much. Shador's a joke. Somebody else over I'm forgetting. Like this, they also drafted Dylan Gabriel, who I don't hate. I know he's a little small, but he's not the best on him, but pretty accurate with the ball, smart player, decent athlete. But in Cleveland, you're done. No chance that kind of player is gonna work out in Cleveland. Yeah, his career is over. Just one of the worst quarterback that I've ever seen. He probably will be the worst if it wasn't for the Saints. And just obviously let go of Nick Chubb, although he doesn't have a whole lot left anyway. I don't mind him trading back. In the first round, because now you have Jacksonville's first round pick, which could be a pretty high pick. You pick up an extra high first next year. You still got Mason Graham, who I think will be a great defensive lineman. So I don't hate that you did that, but just nothing else really happened, and you're kind of screwed. So those are my AFC North all-season grades. That's all I have for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.